Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
Mr. Ambassador, the situation that is happening outside this building and the context in which we found ourselves is a bit tough because the ruling party has reinitiated the law on foreign influence, which is basically the same law apart from a few terminology issues that has been changed. It is basically the same law as the law introduced last year, and then it was abolished, as we all know. But after that, a lot has changed in terms of Georgia's context, because Georgia has been granted the EU candidacy, and we have made quite a large steps towards EU integration. In your opinion, what is what is the UK's position on this law that has been initiated in the Parliament and is still in the discussion in the Parliament?
I think when it comes to the draft law on the transparency of foreign influence, which is its current name, we've already been very clear. We're following the developments of that law very clearly and are concerned that as it's currently drafted, it could have implications on the UK's support for Georgia's continued democratic development and reform, and ultimately Georgia's progress towards Euro-Atlantic integration. So the United Kingdom is no longer a member of the European Union, so I won't comment on that. Although what I would say is that the UK's position on Georgia has been really clear over the 30 plus years of relations between newly independent Georgia and the UK. We support Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Sovereignty for me is a really important word, and it has its roots absolutely anchored in democracy. Sovereignty is about having, your country having the ability to choose its own path. So, having said what I just said about the European Union, I can be really clear. The United Kingdom stands rock solid behind Georgia's aspirations to join the EU and NATO. And I can say that from outside the European Union because it's got really strong roots in democracy and sovereignty. Every opinion poll I care to read says that the Georgian people stand rock solid behind the EU and NATO. Every major political party says its goal is to join the EU and NATO, and it's down there in your constitution. So if I'm serious about supporting Georgia's sovereignty, then you want to join the EU, I'm rock solid behind it. When it comes to the current law, European colleagues have spoken about the impact on your European Union aspirations. I won't go into that. When it comes to the current law, what I'm worried about is as much some of the rhetoric around it as the law itself. The rhetoric suggests that the support that the UK and other partners gives to Georgia is somehow, it's all about us. I'm here, we are spending UK taxpayers' money to support the UK's interests. Everything the UK does in Georgia is designed to support Georgia's aspirations to join the EU and NATO. I worry that in its current form, the law will stigmatise and ultimately damage our ability to deliver some of that support. I've spoken in the past, just one example, a couple of examples among many, right? Through UN Women, we support any number of women-led civil society organisations who deliver work in, I think it's 18 municipalities along the boundary lines with Abkhazia and South Ossetia, right? That work is done to support what the Georgian government says is its priorities of reconciliation and non-recognition on Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Right? If nothing else, that is all labelled as being work done at the behest of a foreign power with all the stigma that turns. It's nothing of the sort. It is designed to deliver the Georgian government's priority of reconciling with the communities. And therefore I think it's in that space that some of the risks lie. I could go on, but that's probably longer than you wanted.
Could we go so far to say that if this law is introduced, then the funding and the support in general, not only monetary support, but support, diplomatic support, political support that Georgia has been experiencing from the United Kingdom basically since receiving independence 30 years ago, could be threatened?
Nothing will change the UK's position on support for Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. When it comes to, look, we are not, the law is still in draft. It is not yet through any reading in Parliament, although it's gone through its committee stage, and clearly there is a great degree of public concern about what it means. I will continue to engage with Georgia's political leadership on the law and the impact of it. We will have to see where we end up, but what I would say, part of that support for sovereignty and territorial integrity is absolutely intimately bound up with Georgia, a healthy and strong, vibrant democracy in Georgia. On that, although I can't speak about the EU requirements, what I can speak about is NATO as a strong NATO ally. I can tell you now what NATO requires for membership is very similar to what the EU requires in terms of democratic standards. And we fundamentally believe that a healthy, lively, vocal civil society is an integral part of any open democracy. So again, I think I'm very keen to ensure that that is safeguarded in Georgia, because it is an essential part. And it is about not only civil society who support the state in providing service delivery, whether that's, some of our, not necessarily the UK, but allies and partners who support agricultural development, women's rights, services for disabled people, all of that would get labelled under this law. And I just don't think that's accurate. So I don't quite know where we'll get to. The UK will continue to stand alongside Georgia. But frankly, if the law goes through as it is, I think, how we do that, it will just get harder. And I don't think that's in Georgia's interests or indeed those of the UK.
A few days ago, you, together with the ambassador of the European Union, Hirchinsky, and the ambassador of the United States to Georgia, Robin Danigan, met with the Prime Minister, Irakli Kobakhidze, to discuss this law. What was the meeting like, and what were the outcomes of the meeting?
So we had I think on principle, and I know there is a debate right now about ambassadors' role in public life. I'm very clear that the meetings I have behind closed doors should stay behind closed doors. So there's a fundamental principle on diplomatic practice that we stick to that discretion, and I'm not going to go into the details, but we had a healthy conversation about the law, the rationale behind it, and its potential implications.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
Pleasure. Thank you.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.